Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Spider-Man Far From Home. Of course, as the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half of this review. I got to see the movie yesterday. Everybody was going out to see it. They put it out insanely early. I thought it was going to be like, a couple of late showings like you would. Normally you see it on Thursday. It's like kind of late showings. They had midnight showings on Monday. You could have seen it. I think there were showings at like 7 or 8 in the morning yesterday at the theater I went to, unfortunately. Of course, I had to work. So I didn't get to go like early in the morning and then review it. So saw it last night at I think I saw it at 7. I actually got to see it in IMAX where they had like the crazy poster and stuff for free, so that was cool. So got 2 Marvel posters because I went to see the re-release for Avengers, so I got that one too. That one's way cooler than that. It's also a thicker poster. This one feels so flimsy. I was freaking out. Just the wind was blowing. I was like, Jesus, this thing's gonna get bent. Movie's great. I really loved it. I thought it was a great sequel. There's so much stuff I want to talk about that's in spoilers, but as far as non-spoiler stuff, they did a great job with this second movie. Of course, with it being, the second film, you kind of always have that thing where it's like, all right, I feel like it's easier to do a good origin story because it's like, okay, well, you always have that first great trial and tribulation, which they did a really good job of in the first movie, especially when they mimic the scene from the comic books where he like lifts the weight off his shoulders. So they did a great job there. The villain also was really cool in that movie. And so I was like, all right, well, how are we going to go from that to this, especially with some of the Avengers stuff in between, where it's like, all right, we've seen him die, we've seen him come back. This is the world after, Endgame, so it's been 5 years, and I think like 9 months they mentioned in the beginning, so it's been like, over 5.5 years since that initial snap, which they call the blip in the movie, which I thought was super funny. It just doesn't sound as cool as like the snap. It's like, it's the blip, blip, and you're gone. It makes sense, but it was just like, that just makes it like such a simpler thing. It's like, it's the blip. I was blipped, and that was it. But I think they did a good job with that. They explain characters, coming back and stuff like that. Characters being older, characters, they come back. Obviously, it's the same age and stuff. So they do a lot of great jokes with that. The movie itself is hilarious. I think this one is way funnier than the last one, which I thought the last one was funny too. But I felt like, man, they put a lot of comedy in this one, and I didn't think it was overbearing or anything like that. I thought it was just really, really funny. So I definitely enjoyed that. Everybody in the theater was laughing and stuff. So it was like, all right, they definitely got a lot of good jokes in there. Like quite a few times there were some really good ones, and it was like, everyone be laughing long enough where you miss, like how you missed the next line or two. Like that happened probably like 4 or 5 times. So they had some good jokes in there for sure, just throughout the movie. The action I'd say was really good. It gets better, I'd say, towards the end of the movie than it is in the beginning because there's just specific stuff happening, and I'll reference that when we get into it for spoilers. But the action definitely gets better as the movie goes on, and everything they do, and obviously I can't give all the spoilers away as far as what they do with Mysterio and stuff like that, with him being, what they reference as far as like the multiverse and all that stuff. So I can't get into specifics on any of that, but well done, incredibly well done. I would say that due to Mysterio being a part of the film, that allows for them to have like that one super epic scene, which I think they did a great job on. I guess technically they kind of have 2, and you just see it when you see them. But I thought that was awesome. They made a really cool reference to the Spider-Man PS4 video game, and that's just somewhere in there. I'll let you guys find that if you played the game like I did and you do specific things within that game. You got the reference super easy because it's an obvious one. If not, then it's not that big of a deal. But I loved it because I love the crap out of that game. So I was like, oh, that's a reference to the game. So I thought that was super cool. But really enjoyed the movie. Thought it was funny. I thought the action was good. I thought the way that they handled the characters was really interesting, especially with Nick Fury, where we haven't really seen Nick Fury as like kind of a main character, really, or at least a big part of the movie. Honestly, since like I think Winter Soldier was the last one because that was the one where he like supposedly died. So then he made his like drop-in appearances here and there since that movie. But this, I would say, was kind of akin to that, where like he's in it for a decent chunk, which obviously you get that from the trailer. But it was actually nice to see because I was like, okay, he's coming back. It's like, all right, Nick Fury coming back, and it's like it's been 5 years. I get taken down, and then things have happened in these 5 years, and then I'm coming back to kind of reform Shield. We don't really have the Avengers, so it's like I gotta kind of get things back in fighting shape. I don't know what's going on with the world, and that tends not to work for super paranoid Nick Fury. So it was fun to see him in the movie, and kind of the issues he's dealing with, where it's like I gotta find a new set of Avengers. I have to find the people that are gonna protect this world. And you're the kid who Tony Stark, basically, passes lineage on to. So I gotta come at you, and he's super tough, way up here, Nick Fury, and it's just like a kid in high school who's going on a high school trip. So it was really interesting. I like the way that was handled. Like I said, Mysterio was definitely a good character. Got to see, two new suits. We get the stealth suit, we get the new black suit, which I wouldn't mind if that was the new suit, like, as a whole. I think that would be really cool. So we'll see what happens with that. We'll just have to see. I don't want to talk too much about it, even though it's not really a spoiler in any way, shape, or form. But I don't want to talk about what some of the stuff they do. So I'll get into that in spoilers. But definitely loved the movie. Had a great time with it. I have to end up seeing it again. But man, it's all in spoilers. But go see the movie if you haven't already seen it. It's definitely worth checking out. It's hard to say if I really like this one more than I like the last one, because I was like, all right, definitely funnier. Definitely made me laugh a whole lot more. I would say, at least towards the end, I think ever since, we had like Homecoming, it was like, all right, we had his introduction with Civil War, then we had Homecoming, and it was like, all right, they did a lot of stuff with him in Avengers. Specifically, I think they did a lot more with him in Infinity War than they did with Endgame. So it was like, I feel like they've gotten to the point where they're like, all right, between his first movie, with Homecoming and then Far From Home, they've had a lot of time to be like, this is how Spider-Man moves. And I was like, it just looks better. Like, it was already good in the first movie, but I was like, they've had him in, a couple movies since then. And it was like, they kind of got it down where it's like, this is how Spider-Man looks when he's moving. And they, with different obstacles and things like that. So I love that. I was like, all right, this looks really, really good. So definitely go check out the movie. There are 2 post-credit sequences. So there's one after like the first, the cool credits, and then of course there's one at the very end, both of which are utterly amazing. So honestly, it's like some of the best ones I think they've had because of just what they do. So you gotta stay. Like, it's not just like, oh, it's a cool thing. It's like, these are very important to what they're going to be doing next within like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So you need to stay for those credits because they are legitimately important. So I thought that was great, because normally it's just like, oh, here's a cool scene, here's this thing kind of referencing the next movie or whatever. And I was like, both those sequences are insanely relevant to what they're going to be doing in, the universe as a whole. So I was like, I can't wait to see, where we end up going next. So definitely check out the movie, stay for the post-credit sequences. That's pretty much it for the spoiler-free segment of this. So if you don't want spoilers, do not watch this. Go see the movie, then come back. Let me know your thoughts on it. But getting into spoilers, I got to start with the post-credit sequences. I'll actually start with the very last one because it wasn't as mind-blowing to me. I thought it was great, but it wasn't like that immediate thing like, oh, that's not what I thought was going to happen. So we have Nick Fury in space. We find out that the Skrull are actually replacing Nick Fury, which I thought was funny. It was kind of a play on Secret Invasion. So they have, I totally can't remember the dude's name, but the Skrull from Captain Marvel and his wife, they replaced Fury and Maria. And I thought that was cool. It was like, all right, so Nick Fury's like way out in space. He's out somewhere else in some different galaxy or something. And he's working on this giant Skrull ship where they're doing some crazy mission. And I thought that was amazing. I thought that was super cool. And I was like, all right, funny little scene, but that's a big deal. It's like they put him out there in space. They got the Skrull doing their thing, so they can still do the Secret Invasion. If they do, good Skrull and bad Skrull, that sort of deal. So you have like the good Skrull, like in this movie, which find out it's not actually Nick Fury and Maria Hill the whole time. So it was like, all right, that I thought was cool. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, they referenced the Kree. I can't remember if they referenced the Kree or if they referenced the Skrull. I think it was the Kree though. And it was like a random scene where they were talking about, I thought they were just doing like a passing reference, like, oh, that's like Secret Invasion. So it seems like what they're doing is Secret Invasion won't be the Skrull invading, it'll actually be the Kree making themselves look human instead of the Skrull full on, shape-shifting. So I was like, all right, either way, Secret Invasion is like the sweetest thing ever. So if they pull it off, I don't know how they'll do it, where they put the little hints in, like somebody's acting kind of weird and stuff. I don't know how that's going to work. But I would love to see it, because that's one of my favorite things in like Marvel comics. Like Secret Invasion is just so good, especially if you've seen like Earth's Mightiest Heroes, that the perfect Marvel cartoon. Well, that's hard to say. I mean, we did have X-Men and Spider-Man, but it's top 3. It's like top 3, maybe top 4, because Spectacular Spider-Man is also freaking great. But they did it so well in that show where like Secret Invasion is like people acting like kind of weird, but not weird enough. So it's like, oh, that's slightly different, but it's like situations are pretty extreme. Makes sense. The Avengers might feel a little different about this thing compared to that thing. And then it turns out a bunch of people are taken over by aliens and the whole world's been wiped out. And not wiped out, but like stuff's getting weird. So we'll see what happens with that. That probably won't be for like another 10 years. That'll probably be the next big like Thanos level thing. Like the Secret Invasion is another 10-year build up. But yeah, I thought that was fantastic. So that was really cool. And then of course the first post-credit sequence where Mysterio reveals Peter's identity. First off, let's talk about the fact that they got oh man, I can't think of his name, but we have the same actor for J. Jonah Jameson. That was fantastic because it was like, yeah, you just can't have anyone else. It doesn't work. So he showed up, the whole theater just went crazy, and I was like, yeah, that's just good. That works. So I love that for sure. That was amazing. But then, Mysterio with the little clip where it's like, I don't know how you're gonna spin this, and they reference that where the guy was like, cut the feed and do all this. So it's like, all right, it ends up coming back at the end, and it's like Spider-Man's real identity is Peter Parker, and I was like, huh. That, and also they ended it with the with the F like they did with the last movie, so that was really good. But I was just like, how in the world do you go on to Spider-Man 3? Like, they did it so fast, and obviously they're really, sticking with basically the whole theme of the film is like being, like a legacy pretty much, like him taking over for Iron Man. They stuck with it because the end of the movie comes along. It's like, surprise, this kid is Spider-Man. And I was just like, what the F? Like, how in the world is that going to play out in the next movie? Like, what is he going to be able to do, and where is he going to be able to go as Spider-Man? It's not like, in the comic books when they did Civil War and he was like, a 26-year-old dude or whatever age they are, because they kind of age but don't age in the comics. Whatever age he was an adult. And it's like, boom, I'm Peter Parker, I'm Spider-Man. That's totally different than he's still the 16-year-old kid in high school. Like, yep, that's Spider-Man Peter Parker. Although I can't wait to see what they do with Flash, because that'll be hilarious. But that was a great way to end it, and I was just like, man, that's a cliffhanger right there, where you just ended like, this is who Spider-Man is, and they reveal it to the world, and they make him seem like the villain, where he's like, execute this and stuff. So I don't know where they're headed with this third movie. I don't know what they're gonna call it. If they stick with the home, like No Home, or far. Well, they can't go Far From Home. That's this movie, but I don't know what they're gonna call it. But either way, I'm excited for this next movie. Like, I think it's gonna be really good. Like, I cannot wait to see what they do with that. I don't know if they're gonna do kind of appearances and stuff where it's like, oh, the impact of him being revealed is like the first step to other characters being taken down. But for the most part, when you really think about it, the way they've done the MCU, at least, everybody knows who everybody is because it's only the Avengers. It's not like, oh, there's Spider-Man and here's this person and that person. It's really just like, no, it's just the Avengers. So that's that's Tony Stark, that's Steve Rogers. He was frozen in ice and then he came back. Everyone knows who the Avengers are. Like, there are no secret identities really in the Avengers. So Spider-Man's really the only guy. So it's kind of funny seeing that, where it's like, yeah, I guess it kind of just fits in line a little bit with the MCU, at least, because no one's actually had a secret identity except for Peter, and now that's gone. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. So I'm looking forward to it for sure, and I assume based on how they kind of play things with the end of the movie, I wanted to talk about the costume stuff. He does wear the black outfit, but he does still have his original costume, and he also has like the nanotech outfit, which I thought it was super weird. It was like in a box and stuff, and I was like, I guess that makes sense that it would be like this weird nanotech thing, but I still just thought it would be like a suit, and then when he wants it to go away, it would just, I don't know, shrink or what, go inside itself. I don't know. But I thought that was an interesting scene where it's like, he's looking at the suits and it's just like in a box and it's like swirling around like a tornado. I was like, that's super weird, but it looks really cool. But yeah, it'll be cool to see what they do with the third movie and, whatever they decide to do with the costumes, because now he's got, 3 of them that work. He probably wouldn't go back to his original one, which he doesn't even do that in this movie. In the beginning, he's in the Iron Spider outfit because it makes sense to go high tech. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. He might have to go back to his older outfit, or maybe stick with the black outfit, because the first one would be Stark Tech, and then the second one, obviously, with all the nanotech, is Stark Tech as well. So, different layers and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of stuff ends up playing out, where some people are like, oh, we don't know if we really trust the kid. They don't really have S.H.I.E.L.D. to fall back on to be like, no, the kid's totally good. Like, this is exactly what happened. Even though they were there, I'm sure there's some weird way that that's not going to work, because I'm like, all those drones should easily have 100 recordings, amongst them. So it's just like, hey, Edith, play this tape and show like the whole thing, and then they should be good to go. Like, I don't think that they were controlling all of the drones the entire time. Like, he was recording it looked like Mysterio was recording off a cell phone or something, and then he just cut it, and they do like the static edit and stuff, and I'm like, well, they just play it off the drone. Like, hey, show them the full clip, show that I said, like, cancel this thing, and then you're good to go. So I don't know. We'll see how that plays out, because in all honesty, it could be super easy for them to fix that problem. But since they ended it that way, I assume it'll be like, natural comic book disaster, and he's got to go on the run and all sorts of other crazy stuff. So I'm excited for how that's going to play out. Getting on Mysterio, awesome villain. I was curious what they were going to do. I am sad that they didn't do the multiverse. I got to admit that as a comic fan, especially with, all the big talks where it's like, oh, how are they going to put in the X-Men and Fantastic Four and all the other properties that they just got from Fox? I was kind of sad. I was like, oh man, that sucks. It's not actually a multiverse. I figured he would still be a villain, but I figured he came from a different planet and then played the hero, and it was going to be like the same thing. Except they just cut out the multiverse, and I was like, oh, that sucks. They made a great joke about it where they're going through all the different people and stuff, and how Mysterio was actually the one who made the therapy thing that Tony was talking about before, and he named it Barf and stuff, and how he pissed him off. And then the one dude was the guy that Obadiah Stane was yelling at in like the first Iron Man movie, little stuff like that. I was like, oh, that's actually kind of cool, and how they're just super pissed off at Tony, and how they totally con Peter, who's like, this little kid. They conned him, and I think in 2 days or something like that, and it was just super easy. I mean, he was in like a crazy state, and they knew what to do. It's like super insane disasters, great new superhero from another dimension. It totally makes sense at this point in time, at least. And then you just manipulate the kid, be like, what do you want, and this and that. And it totally makes sense, by the way. So I was thinking about this earlier, and I thought about it a little bit when I would see the trailers, and it made perfect sense once the scene finished. And I was like, oh, the whole bar was an illusion, and all those people were in on it. Because they were just sitting there. Because I'm like, I know that he's not like, an Avengers, he's not Tony Stark. But Mysterio was just like, 2 days ago, that day even, when they were just at the carnival, like, this guy just saved a bunch of people, and he's just there, like, he's kind of dressed down, he doesn't have the cape on, but I'm like, he's got the jacket and everything, like, that's obviously the same guy. And it's like, well, who's this kid he's talking to? It's Night Monkey. So I thought it was super funny, because I'm like, they're just sitting in this bar, they're basically in their costumes, this is stupid. And then once it all ends, it was like all the people were in on it, and I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. That's very interesting. So that was just a little random thing, because I remember seeing it in the trailer, and then especially when I saw the movie, I was just like, they're just kind of maxing and relaxing in this bar, like half costumed. Like, people are gonna still be able to recognize that, even if it's not like all over the news. It was in the same city. Like, they're gonna be like, that thing just happened. Like, these are the people that did it. Oh, that guy's wearing the exact same green jacket and stuff. Like, they would have figured that out. So it made sense once the scene ended, and I was just like, okay, at least they got that, because I was like, that's super weird. But I love the way they handled that. 2 insanely beautiful scenes with the Mysterio stuff, where Peter gets tricked by him the first time, and they do like all the hologram stuff, and they have him going through all the different costumes. I love that. And then of course the Peter tingle, which was great. But the spider sense at the end, I like the way they were doing that, because it was like, that was a big thing with the first movie, where it's like he kind of didn't have it, or even when he first showed up in Civil War, it's like he didn't really have it. Then they show it in Infinity War, and they kind of talk about it. It was like he kind of has it, but he kind of doesn't have it. And I was like, okay, that's at least a good way to do it, where he has to like train to use his spidey sense. It's not automatic like it normally would be. And I love that scene at the end where they're just like, basically inside this tunnel pretty much, and he has to use his spider sense and jump over all these things. I kind of wish the camera stood still for like a little bit, because it was just spinning literally the whole time. It was spinning with him, and I was like, I get that, because it's literally just 100% CG. And it all looked good too. Like, even when they did the first sequence, and it's like, he'll fall into something and get up, and he'll be in a different costume. I was like, I actually love this, and like the giant mirrors falling and stuff. So, excuse me, absolutely love what they did with it. I thought that was fantastic. I would say like the car scene from Homecoming was like the big scene that everyone talks about, where it was like, that was just intense and you remember it. And this, I would say, instead of it being as dramatic, it's just visually, it's like, holy crap, this is good. And of course, I think if you play video games, it might remind you of like the Batman Arkham games, because it made me think of like some of the Scarecrow segments where he's small and Mysterio might be big. But I loved it, and I feel like, maybe I'm just crazy, I feel like they did this a couple times in the movie, but were they referencing the symbiote costume? Because I felt like there were a few moments, I think they even did it in like the random credits, where it was showing the symbol and it was like changing costumes and stuff, and I was like, I feel like they just showed a white spider with a black costume, and I'm like, I'm probably crazy, and it was just, it would be like a quick flash or something, and I was like, I felt like I saw that multiple times throughout the movie, where I would see like a random white spider and it was on like a black background, and I instantly assume Venom and symbiote costume. So maybe I'm crazy, maybe you guys saw the same thing, and maybe it was just the actual transition of colors. But I mean, it's all fake, so they chose what transition to make. Like, it didn't need to, especially considering the spider itself is completely black. There was no reason for it to be white. So maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I didn't even see that at all, and I just thought I did. But I felt like I saw it in that first scene when he like first deals with like the illusions and stuff, and I felt like I saw it during like the special, like the credits where they're drawings and stuff. But love both sequences. I thought the CG for the first time was great. The CG for the second time was also great, and it was just cool. Like I love the way they did it, where it was like silence and he's just running through and jumping on walls, and there's like no sound effects until like the guns go off or until he punches something. And I was like, I love that entire moment, and it's him using his spidey sense, and I was like, that was great. And then it gets to the end, and we see like Beck on the ground, but he's actually standing next to him with a handgun. He tries to shoot him in the head, and he like grabs the gun at the last second. And I was like, that was good. That's some good masterful spidey sense going on. So I love that. I thought that was fantastic. The stuff with MJ was good, so it'll be cool that they're gonna have their relationship built up. Also, that's a totally different version that I'm not personally familiar with, because now we're gonna see how they could possibly have a relationship with Peter being seen as like a super villain at this point. So very curious about how that's gonna play out, but that was cool. Ned and Betty Brant, that was hilarious. Like they end up as a couple, they have their trip, their romance, they grow as people, and then they grow apart, and it's all over. So that was just funny. I thought that was really well done. But love the movie all the way through. I still don't know why that one dude who got who was like 5 years older than them, I'm like, this still doesn't make sense. Why is he on this trip? Why would he even why would that even be allowed? Like I guess he worked in the school, but it was also just like, you got like, I get like, it's such a weird mental state to be in, where it's like, oh, that's that girl I had a crush on, like, but also you're like 5 years older than her now, which I guess isn't really that much. But considering they're all like 15 and 16, that's totally not legal. So you got to just like back off of that stuff. Because the whole time I was like, he's still 5 years older than them. Because they don't say like, oh, he was in ninth grade and they were in this grade or something like that. And so it's like a lot closer gap where it's like, oh, it's only like 2 or 3 years. Like, no, he's 5 years older. Like, he's 5 years older. And it seems like he's 5 years older than all of them. So I was just like, the whole time I'm just like, what is he doing in the school? Where is he? Why is he there? Is he working there? What's he doing? He's just, I didn't get it. They didn't throw it in there, so I'm just like, what are you here for? What are you here for? Outside of being the weird dude, he's oddly enough, he was like the time displaced creeper a little bit when you think about it. So it was funny, but love the movie, love what they did with it. Cannot wait to see how in the world they're gonna go to Spider-Man 3 with everyone knowing his identity. We got J. Jonah Jameson. I'm hoping that wasn't just a cameo and they're actually getting him back for the next movie. And I love the fact that he's like, this comes from Mysterio, who will most likely go down as like the greatest hero the world has ever seen. Little stuff like that, so that was funny. But I'm excited for the next one. I love the new suit. I like the black suit. I love the reference to Back in Black, which obviously they made a great joke out of, where it was like, I love Led Zeppelin. But it was really cool. So I like to see that. I like to see that we got to see the electric webs, because I thought that as soon as he fought like the water, I was like, electric webs work for this. And I thought that would be cool. That was, I figured it, I wasn't sure if there were going to be illusions or if it was going to be real, and, what was going to be real, what was going to be fake in the movie. So I was like, well, if he's actually fighting it, this sort of thing would work. Try electricity, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, because it's all water. Who knows? But it's all fake, so I guess it doesn't matter. But really enjoyed it. And also the one random little thing I wanted to talk about that I didn't think was the greatest, when they do that first scene with like the water elemental and Peter is like not in his costume and in CG, it just didn't look as good. Like, it just looks weird, because it's like, it's supposed to be him, and it's just like, it's so much easier when it's just like a tiny little Spider-Man, and it was like, instead it was a CG tiny Peter Parker, and it sticks out a whole lot more to me. So it wasn't like it was horrible, but it was just like, it just looks weird. Like, it just looks so weird to me, because you're used to it with the costume, but when it's supposed to be like a person, like, we just aren't there yet. Like, technology wise, we just haven't gotten there where, oddly enough, you can do it super up close, where they do like, the young versions of people's faces. There's always that sort of uncanny valley where it still doesn't work 100%. But oddly enough, I feel like that's better than when we have far away versions, because there's just always something in the arms. Like, people are just a little bit too bendy, even when it's Spider-Man. And I guess it was the fact that, like when he's in the costume, it's like, yeah, I can see Spider-Man doing that. But when you see it's like supposed to be this actual person, but it's CG and he's doing the same stuff, it's like, it just doesn't look as real. And maybe it's because the suit is almost seamless, and it's like you don't see different stuff. You just see like the colors in the suit. And in that, it was like, oh, well, his sleeves are rolled up. I can see that. Like, even in the CG, I could tell like exactly where they were cuffed and stuff like that. So it's like it had such a high level of detail, but it was still just not there. So it just looked a little weird. But that obviously didn't like take me out of the movie or anything. But overall, fantastic film. Loved it for sure. Great movie to, come after Endgame, I think personally. But of course, we'll love to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. Definitely want to know what you guys thought about the post-credit sequences and what you think is going to come from that. I think we're getting Secret Invasion. I don't even really know what to think about Spider-Man's identity being out there, because I'm like, man, he's such a young he's still the super young in high school version of the character. To have his identity revealed that early on just really shocks me. So I don't know what to really expect from it. I'm sure there's something. I'm sure they'll, as all comic book movies do, they'll pull stuff from different lines. But I'm just like, man, I don't know where you really go from that. Like, maybe pull it for a totally different character, Public Enemy #1 type stuff. So I don't know where we're going with it, but I'm looking forward to it. Love this movie. Like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about it. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.